Hi, boys and girls. I'm going to read chapter 17 from Ellie's story by W. Bruce Cameron. I wanted to refresh your memory on what was happening with chapter 16. Ellie had some chemicals on her nose that had taken away some of her smell and her ability to smell. So then Maya had brought her into schools and nursing homes to comfort children and comfort the elderly. So that was what her new job was. So chapter 17 starts. When we weren't doing school or other work, Maya would run out the door in the morning in a big hurry while Al chuckled. Then Al would leave too. I'd stay at home with the stupid cats. Ellie doesn't like the cats. Even though I no longer wore the nose cream, Tinkerbell didn't leave me alone. She curled up against me when I took naps on the soft blanket Maya had put down near her bed. It was embarrassing, really. But since no one except Emmett and Stella was there to see, I let Tinkerbell stay. The feel of her purr vibrated against my side. It was a warm feeling, somehow, and it reminded me a little of snuggling close with Mother and my brothers and sisters long ago. So Ellie is very tolerant of those cats, even though she says that she doesn't like them. One day, Maya called to me, and I jumped into the car, ready to work. Look at those clouds, Ellie, she said as she drove. I wagged, happy to just hear her talking to me, and stuck my nose out the car's window. The air was damp and sweet. I love mornings like this. The smells were stronger than usual, more like I remembered them from the old days when we still did find. I smelled asphalt, exhaust fumes, salty French fries from a store that we drove past, other dogs, and people. When Maya pulled the car up in front of the school, she ran inside quickly with me as the first drops of rain started to fall. This time we didn't go to one of those big rooms where the children sat in seats and Maya's voice boomed. Instead, we walked into a smaller place called a classroom. The children sat on blankets on the floor. That looked cozy. If they wanted me to lie down on the blanket too, I would not have minded. While I was waiting to see if someone would offer me a blanket, I stretched out on the carpet. Maya had just started talking when a sudden flash of brilliant light brightened all the windows. And then came a crack of thunder. Some of the children jumped and yelped like frightened puppies. The rain poured down. I lifted my nose and breathed deeply, wishing someone would open a window to let the smells inside. Settle down, class, said a woman standing near Maya. The door to the classroom swung open and a man, his jacket dripping wet, came inside. A woman was with him. I sat up quickly, looking straight at them. We've lost Jeffrey Hicks, the man said. I knew the worry in his voice, the tension in his muscles, the way alarm was rising off both of them like a scent. This was the way people looked and sounded when I was about to work. He's a first grader, the man told Maya. They were playing hide and seek when the rain started, the woman said. The storm just came up out of nowhere. 1 minute it was fine, and the next... She put her hand up to her eyes, which were suddenly full of tears. When I had everyone come in, Jeffrey wasn't with them. It was his turn to hide. Could the dog? The man said hesitantly, turning to Maya. And Maya looked at me, and I sat up straighter. Was this work? You'd better call 911, she said. Ellie hasn't worked a search or rescue in years. Won't the rain wash away the scent? It's really coming down out there, said the woman, fighting to keep her voice steady. I'm worried that by the time another dog gets here... Maya bit her lip. We'll certainly help look. You need to call the police, though. Where do you think he might have gone? There are some woods behind the playground, the man said quickly. There's a fence, but the kids can lift it up, and they know they're not supposed to, but sometimes... This is his backpack. Will that help? The woman asked, holding out a canvas bag. Maybe. Maya took it. Call the police. Ellie, come. I jumped to my feet and raced after her as she ran down the hallway. At last, we were going to find again. Maya stopped just inside a door. Outside, rain was pounding down. Look at that rain, she muttered. Her nervous energy sagged. She knelt down beside me, and I felt her worry and her sadness, but her determination too. Ellie, you ready, girl? Here, smell this. I took a deep whiff of the canvas bag. I could smell strawberry yogurt, cookie crumbs, paper, crayons, and a person. Jeffrey, Maya said. Okay? And she opened the door and the rain whipped into the hallway. Find! I leaped out into the rain. In front of me was a wide stretch of black pavement, and beyond that, a playground piled with wood chips. I coursed back and forth, my nose low to the ground. I could smell many children, although the smells were not strong and the rain was starting to wash them away. Maya was out running away from the school. Here, Ellie, find here, she shouted over the drumming of the raindrops on the hard ground. We tracked all the way back to the wire fence. Nothing. I could feel Maya's frustration and fear, and it made me tense inside. Was I doing this wrong? Was I being a bad dog? Maya found a piece of the fence next to a pole that had been bent back to make a triangle-shaped hole. Find, Ellie, she commanded, and I sniffed all along the fence, but I could find nothing. Okay, if he'd gone through that, you'd smell him, right? I hope so, she murmured. Jeffrey, she shouted. Jeffrey, come on out, it's all right. But no one came out. Keep trying, Maya said softly. Find Ellie. We followed the length of the fence all the way around the schoolyard. Nothing. A police car pulled up on the street outside the fence, and red lights were flashing through the rain. Maya jogged over to talk to the man driving. I was still on find. I kept going, my nose to the ground. It was hard. I wasn't picking up much of anything, and the rain was washing so much away. But I knew if I just concentrated, I could separate the smell of the backpack, the smell that was Jeffrey, from all the others. Jacob had trained me. Maya had worked with me. They'd shown me how to do it. I could still do it if I just didn't quit. There! I had something. I whipped my head around again and sniffed harder. Right in the middle of the fence, there was a gap between two poles. No grown person would be able to squeeze through. But Jeffrey had done it. His scent had been rubbed on both of the poles, strongly enough that the rain had not washed them clean. Jeffrey had left the playground. I dashed back to Maya. She was speaking to the policeman when I got to her feet. We tried, but it's no good. Ellie can't. And then Maya turned to look at me, shocked. Ellie? She said. Her voice came out in a whisper. And then I got stronger. Ellie, show me! We ran back through the rain to the two poles. Maya peered through the small gap. Come on, she shouted, running along the fence toward a gate. I followed. He left the school grounds. He's on the other side of the fence, she shouted, and the policeman got out of the car and ran after us. Maya threw the gate open, and we both raced through it and then back along the fence to the two poles. I could smell Jeffrey there. I put my nose to the ground. The smell was not as strong, but I could follow it. He had gone this way. And then the smell faded, not 2 steps away from the fence. I stopped, lifting my nose into the wet air. What is it? Asked the policeman. He might have gotten into a car, said Maya, worried. The policeman groaned. I put my nose to the ground and backed up a few feet, and that's when I picked Jeffrey's scent up again. The trail was going the other way. Maya gasped. She's got it. She's got him. I ran down the sidewalk, Maya and the policeman behind me. Beside us, water rushed down the gutter and gurgled down a storm drain. I leaped into the street and shoved my nose into the gap where the water was rushing from the street into the drain. The flowing water carried all sorts of smells with it: grass, dirt, garbage, dead leaves, the faint smell of water itself. But I ignored those, concentrating every thought on my nose. If I needed to, I could have wiggled into that drain to follow the trail. But it turned out I didn't need to. I could smell Jeffrey strongly now. He was right in front of me, although I couldn't see him in the darkness. It was a good place for Jeffrey to hide, but I'd done it. I'd found him. I looked up at Maya. He's in there. He's in the sewer, Maya shouted. The policeman pulled a flashlight off his belt and knelt down beside me in the rushing water to shine the light into the drain. We all saw at the same time the pale face of a frightened little boy. Jeffrey, it's okay. We're going to get you out of there, Maya yelled to him. She knelt in the street, getting her uniform soaking wet as she strained to stretch her arm into the hole far enough to touch him. but the water that was pouring into the drain had pushed Jeffrey back. He was clinging to the far wall of the sewer, to the edge of the black tunnel that stretched out behind him. The water roared around him, pouring past his body and into the long dark space, and Maya could not reach him. The sense of terror that was rising off Jeffrey was so strong it was blinding. I whined anxiously. My finding of Jeffrey wasn't finished. He was there, so close to me, but I couldn't get to him, and neither could Maya. I understood that this find would not truly be done until Jeffrey was out of the water. Water. I'd never really liked it, and here was proof that I'd been right. It might be fun to splash in the ocean where the water only reached my paws, or to jump into Maya's bath, but this water, I knew it was dangerous. It was deadly. It was going to hurt Jeffrey if we didn't finish finding him soon. How did he get in there? The policeman shouted. It's a tight fit. He must have squeezed in before it was raining. It's really coming down. Maya's voice was full of frustration. A round circle made of iron was set in the concrete right above Jeffrey's head. The policeman pried at it with his fingers, trying to pull it up, but he couldn't. I need to get a tire iron, he bellowed, and he handed the flashlight to Maya before he ran off, his feet sloshing in the water. I stayed crouched down by the opening to the drain, right beside Maya. Inside, I could see that Jeffrey was soaking wet and shivering with cold. His jacket was a thin yellow rain slicker with a hood pulled up over his head, but it wasn't doing much good. Hold on, okay, Jeffrey? Maya repeated, leaning down so that Jeffrey could see her face. You hang on. We're going to get you out of there, okay? But Jeffrey didn't answer. His eyes and the yellow glow from Maya's flashlight were dull, as if he hadn't heard her, or he didn't care. I heard a siren wailing, and in less than a minute, a patrol car swung around the corner and braked right beside us, skidding a little on the wet street. The policeman jumped out and ran around the back of the car. Fire and rescue are on the way, he shouted. There's no time, Maya shouted back. He's slipping into the water. Maya was very afraid. I yawned with my own fear, panting with it. We had to get Jeffrey out of the water. The policeman grabbed something from the trunk and ran back to us with a long, thin rod of iron in one hand. Jeffrey, hang on! Don't let go! Maya yelled, and the policeman slipped one end of the metal rod under the edge of the circular plate in the cement, and he leaned on it hard. When Maya jumped up to watch, I went with her. The policeman grunted with effort. The plate tipped with a crack and then flipped up, falling over onto the sidewalk with a clang that hurt my ears. Where the plate had been, there was now a hole that went straight down to the sewer. Jeffrey looked up, startled by the clang of the iron plate falling and the light that streamed down over him. It was only dim, gray light, drenched by the rain, but it must have seemed bright to him. A splatter of mud fell into Jeffrey's cheek. He lifted one hand to wipe it away. Jeffrey, hang on, Maya called out. But he only had one hand on the wall now, and one hand was not strong enough. The water pushed hard against him, and he looked up at us for one moment before he was swept away into the tunnel. Jeffrey! Maya screamed. I was still on fine, so I didn't hesitate for a moment. I didn't like the look of that black rushing water at all, but it was carrying the boy away. I knew I had to follow. I was terrified. I thought of my dreams of the boy Ethan. He'd sunk down into the water. And then Jacob had done the same thing. They had both needed me to save them, and now Jeffrey needed that too. Could I do it? I plunged headfirst into the water and was swept along the tunnel after Jeffrey. Oh my goodness. So I just think about how scared Ellie is of water and how she is willing to risk her life for Jeffrey, and just how devoted she is to her job of search and rescue, and that is her work, and how devoted she is to that. That's just pretty cool. I don't know of very many humans that would be willing to really risk their life for another person that they don't even know. So dogs are awesome. One more chapter, boys and girls. Chapter 18 is next.